Welcome back to Basement Integrity, the podcast by IcyReno.
Great to be back.
Now, last time, we talked quite a bit about how upgrading your basement can really bump up your Toronto home's value.
Yeah, a solid investment for sure.
Today, though, we're shifting gears a little. We want to dive into something that seems to be affecting quite a few homeowners, especially in Toronto's more established neighborhoods.
You mean the impact of all this condo construction?
Exactly. The ongoing condo boom and how it might be affecting older century homes. So this is our deep dive, episode 12, Condo Boom versus Century Homes, Why Basement Upgrades Matter.
Right. And if you're in areas like, say, the Annex, Leslieville, Cabbagetown, places with beautiful, older housing stock, you might have, noticed some things changing around your house. Little things, maybe.
Like what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, maybe a new crack appears on a wall. Or a floor feels just a little off, not quite level anymore.
Or maybe the basement suddenly feels damp when it didn't used to.
Exactly. Dampness, mustiness. It's easy to just think, oh, it's an old house. That's normal.
But it might not be just age, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're finding here at IcyReno.
Yeah, the sheer amount of condo development, all that deep digging for foundations and parking garages.
It has consequences for the surrounding ground.
It really does. Think about it. You're moving massive amounts of soil, sometimes many stories deep. That fundamentally changes the ground conditions nearby.
It disrupts the stability.
Precisely. Imagine digging a huge hole right next to something that's been sitting comfortably for, 100 years. The soil around that hole is going to shift. It's going to settle differently.
And our century homes were built on soil that was stable then.
Exactly. They weren't designed for the kind of soil movement that can happen when a massive excavation project starts up next door or even down the block.
So this movement, this stress, how does it show up in the house itself?
Well, that's where you see those cracks appearing, often in foundation walls, but sometimes in drywall upstairs too. You might notice floors start to slope, even slightly, or doors and windows suddenly start sticking or becoming difficult to open and close.
Annoying, but also maybe a sign of a bigger issue.
It definitely can be. It suggests the foundation itself might be moving or under stress. And it's not just the physical movement of the soil we need to think about.
What else?
Water. The groundwater. All that underground construction significantly alters the natural pathways water takes beneath the surface.
Right. Toronto has a complex water table.
It does. And these huge underground structures, like parking garages, they can act almost like dams or diversions, forcing groundwater to flow where it didn't before.
Okay, so how did that translate to basement problems? Because that's really our focus here at IcyReno.
Well, the most obvious one is new leaks. We hear this quite a bit. My basement was always dry, but ever since they started building that condo...
Suddenly there's water coming in.
Hey.
Frustrating.
Very. Because the water is finding new paths, and sometimes those paths lead right through tiny cracks or even porous spots in an older foundation.
We also hear about sump pumps working overtime, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If the groundwater level rises locally, or if more water is being directed towards your foundation, your sump pump has to work much harder to keep the basement dry, sometimes constantly.
And there's something called hydrostatic pressure.
Yes, that's a big one. It's basically the pressure of the groundwater pushing against your foundation walls from the outside.
Okay.
When nearby construction changes the water flow, this pressure can increase significantly. And it can actually force moisture through the concrete itself, even without visible cracks.
Leading to that damp feeling, the musty smell.
Exactly. And potentially mold, mildew, and damage over time. So if you're noticing new dampness, that nearby construction is a really plausible culprit.
Something homeowners might not immediately connect.
Often not. And then there are the vibrations.
Ah, yes. The constant rumbling from heavy machinery.
Pile drivers, excavators, heavy trucks. It might not feel like an earthquake, but those continuous low-level vibrations travel through the ground.
And older homes feel that more.
They can, yes. Foundations built decades ago might not have the same resilience. Over time, these vibrations can potentially loosen bricks or mortar in older foundations. They can cause existing small cracks to widen.
Sort of accelerating wear and tear.
That's a good way to put it. Weakening structural support slowly over time.
So it's a combination of factors: shifting soil, changing water tables, vibrations, all stemming from nearby development.
It paints a challenging picture for some older homes, definitely.
Okay, so given that Toronto's skyline isn't likely to stop growing anytime soon, what can homeowners do? how can they protect their property?
That's the crucial question. And the answer really lies in being proactive and considering specific basement upgrades. These aren't just nice to haves anymore. They're becoming pretty essential safeguards in some cases.
Let's talk specifics. Underpinning comes up a lot in our work at IcyReno. What exactly is it and why is it relevant here?
Underpinning is essentially strengthening or deepening your existing foundation. You're basically building a new, stronger foundation underneath the existing one.
Why would that be necessary?
Because, as we said, the original foundations might not be deep enough or strong enough to handle the new stresses from soil shifting caused by nearby deep excavations. Underpinning gives your home a much more stable base.
So it directly fights that foundation movement we talked about.
Exactly. It stabilizes the house, and often a side benefit is you can gain more basement height, more usable living space. But the primary reason in this context is structural integrity.
Makes sense. Protect the base. What about water? If the water issues are increasing, waterproofing becomes more critical too, right?
Absolutely critical. With potentially more water trying to get in due to those changing water tables and increased pressure, a robust waterproofing system is your main line of defense.
What does a comprehensive system involve?
It's usually multifaceted. Things like exterior waterproofing membranes actually digging around the foundation and applying a barrier. Also, ensuring you have a functional weeping tile system around the footing to collect and divert water away.
And the sump pump we mentioned earlier.
A reliable sump pump is key, yes. To actively pump out any water that the weeping tile collects. It's about managing the water around your foundation, not letting it build up pressure.
So underpinning for stability, waterproofing for dryness. What about existing damage, like those cracks?
You definitely need to address those. While tiny hairline cracks might just be normal settling, larger cracks or cracks that are getting wider are red flags, especially in this context.
What can be done about them?
Well, we can inject them with materials like polyurethane or epoxy. This seals them against water penetration and can also add some structural bonding.
Okay.
And for walls showing signs of bowing or significant stress, we can reinforce them, often with things like carbon fiber strips, which add tremendous strength.
So there are solutions. It's not hopeless if you see these signs.
Not at all. But the key, really, is being proactive. Don't wait until you have water pouring in or a major structural crack.
What's the first step for a concerned homeowner?
Get a professional foundation inspection. Seriously, have someone qualified come out, take a look, assess the situation. Early detection saves a lot of headaches and money down the road.
Sound advice.
Yeah.
Know what you're dealing with.
Exactly. And if that inspection or signs like sticking doors and uneven floors suggest foundation movement, then seriously consider underpinning for long-term peace of mind.
And waterproofing, even if there are no leaks yet.
Especially if there's construction nearby, yes.
Right.
Proactive waterproofing is almost always more cost-effective than dealing with the aftermath of a flood repairs, mold remediation, damaged belongings. It adds up fast.
Prevention is better than cure.
Definitely. And one more thing, talk to your neighbors.
That's a great point. Why?
If several houses on your street are suddenly experiencing similar basement dampness or foundation issues, that's pretty strong circumstantial evidence pointing towards a common cause, like nearby construction.
Sharing information can be powerful.
It really can.
So the reality is the condo boom is shaping our city, and it has these sometimes hidden impacts on older homes.
That seems to be the case. And understanding these impacts and taking these proactive steps like underpinning and waterproofing your basement is really becoming essential for protecting your investment and just, the long-term health of your home.
It's shifting from just improving living space to actively safeguarding the structure against these new environmental pressures.
Well said. It's about resilience in a changing city.
We really hope this conversation gets you thinking. Take a look around your own home, especially the basement. Notice any changes, however subtle. Could that condo tower going up down the street be playing a role?
It's worth considering. This deep dive is just a starting point, of course.
And maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. If the very ground our homes stand on is changing because of development, how do we adapt our home's foundations to make sure they stay strong for, the next 100 years?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's about building resilience for the future. And if you do have specific questions about your own situation, please reach out to us here at IcyReno. We're always happy to chat.